Evil biker kicked a dog for fun, unaware Snoop Dogg is the owner. The summer heat in Brooklyn Heights was particularly oppressive that afternoon, causing the usual bustling film set atmosphere to feel somewhat sluggish. Snoop Dogg, known for his magnetic presence both on and off screen, stood in the shade between takes, gently stroking his beloved companion. A gentle dog who had become an inseparable part of his daily routine on set. The production of his latest action film had been running smoothly until that moment. The crew was preparing for the next scene, with cameras being repositioned and makeup artists doing touch-ups on the supporting cast. Snoop had always insisted on having his dog on set, believing the animal's presence brought a sense of calm and authenticity to his performances. Little did he know that this ordinary filming day would transform into something far more significant. As the crew broke for lunch, Snoop noticed something unusual about his dog's behavior. The typically energetic animal seemed subdued, almost hesitant to move. Initially attributing it to the oppressive heat, Snoop decided to skip the catered lunch and take his companion for a short walk to find some relief from the scorching temperature. The decision to prioritize his friend's well-being over the tight shooting schedule would prove to be more consequential than he could have imagined. Walking through the historic streets of Brooklyn Heights, Snoop couldn't help but notice the contrast between the elegant brownstones and the modern film equipment that had temporarily invaded their neighborhood. Local residents had grown accustomed to the sight of film crews, but something felt different about this particular afternoon. There was an unusual tension in the air, like the calm before a storm. They found a public fountain where his dog could rest and get some water. As he watched his companion drink, his mind wandered to their journey together. The bond they shared had grown stronger with each passing day, through every success and setback in his career. The peaceful moment was interrupted by the arrival of a motorcyclist who parked nearby. Snoop noticed how his dog's ears perked up, his body tensing slightly. The interaction that followed would set in motion a chain of events that would shake the foundations of Brooklyn Heights' peaceful community. When his dog was suddenly attacked without provocation, Snoop's world shifted instantly, from the controlled environment of a film set to a reality far more urgent and personal. The incident, which left his companion in obvious distress, revealed a darker undercurrent in the seemingly peaceful neighborhood. Rather than joining the crew for lunch as planned, Snoop found himself rushing through the streets, his primary concern now the well-being of his injured friend. The comfortable routine of filming had been shattered, replaced by a desperate search for help. Their path led them to a local cafe, where a moment of respite turned into another shocking incident that would further escalate the situation. During what should have been a brief stop for water, his dog fell victim to another cruel act. This time involving tainted food. The immediate effects were alarming. What started as simple discomfort quickly escalated into serious symptoms suggesting poisoning. The discovery that the seemingly innocent food had been deliberately contaminated with harmful substances added a chilling dimension to the day's events. Without hesitation, Snoop rushed to a nearby veterinary clinic, his heart racing with concern for his loyal companion. The medical team worked swiftly, implementing emergency treatments to counteract the effects of the poison. Throughout the intense treatment, Snoop remained by his friend's side, his usual calm demeanor replaced by visible anxiety as he watched the medical team work to save his beloved pet. As the day progressed, it became clear that these incidents were not random acts of cruelty. They appeared to be connected to a group of intimidating motorcyclists who had been causing trouble in the neighborhood for months. The revelation transformed Snoop's concern from a personal matter into something broader, a challenge to the safety and peace of the entire community. That evening, as the sun set over Brooklyn Heights, Snoop found himself in an unexpected position. The day had begun with him playing an action hero for the cameras, but now he faced a real-life situation that required genuine courage and determination. As he watched over his recovering companion in the veterinary clinic, he made a silent promise. This would not end here. The peace of Brooklyn Heights had been disturbed, and he felt a responsibility to help restore it. The following morning brought no relief from the summer heat, But Snoop Dogg returned to the set with a new purpose. While his dog remained under veterinary care, he began quietly investigating the previous day's incidents. The film crew continued their work, unaware that their star was now involved in something far more serious than their action movie plot. During the morning's first break, Snoop made contact with a trusted friend, a well-respected sheriff in the community. The conversation revealed disturbing patterns of intimidation that had been plaguing the neighborhood for months. Local business owners had been experiencing strange incidents, creating an atmosphere of unease that had gradually settled over Brooklyn Heights like a heavy fog. The sheriff shared information about a local establishment called Iron and Ash, which had become the epicenter of recent conflicts. The motorcycle group responsible for the previous day's incidents frequently gathered there, their presence casting a shadow over the once peaceful neighborhood. The connection between these individuals and the attack on Snoop's dog was becoming increasingly clear. Between takes, Snoop began receiving calls from concerned community members who had witnessed similar incidents. Their stories painted a picture of systematic intimidation that had gone unchallenged for too long. The attack on his dog, it seemed, was just one piece of a larger puzzle, a puzzle that Snoop felt increasingly compelled to solve. The afternoon brought news from the veterinary clinic, while his companion was showing signs of improvement. The analysis of the tainted food revealed a disturbing combination of substances. The deliberate nature of the poisoning confirmed Snoop's suspicions about the organized nature of these acts. His determination to address the situation grew stronger with each passing hour. During lunch break, Snoop visited the Iron and Ash, maintaining his composed demeanor despite the tense atmosphere. The confrontation that followed was marked by controlled intensity as he faced the individuals responsible for his dog's condition. His message was clear and delivered with characteristic calm. "You don't mess with a man's dog." The exchange, while heated, demonstrated Snoop's preference for justice over impulsive retaliation. The reality of the situation became even clearer when local business owners began sharing their experiences with him. Many had faced subtle threats and mysterious accidents, creating a climate of fear that had slowly eroded the neighborhood's sense of security. Snoop's celebrity status provided him with a unique position to address these issues. He had resources and influence that others in the community lacked. As evening approached, Snoop coordinated with his sheriff friend to organize a careful response to the situation. Their strategy focused on gathering evidence and building a case that would stand up to scrutiny. The goal wasn't just to address the attack on his dog, but to restore peace to the entire neighborhood. The production schedule had to be adjusted to accommodate these unexpected developments, but Snoop's priorities were clear. His dog's recovery took precedence over filming, and he personally oversaw the medical care, ensuring that every necessary treatment was provided. The incident had transformed him from merely an actor on location to an active participant in the community's struggle for safety. Throughout the day, Snoop maintained contact with the veterinary clinic, receiving updates on his companion's condition. Each positive report strengthened his resolve to address the larger issues affecting Brooklyn Heights. The experience had revealed a side of the neighborhood that tourists never saw, a community under pressure, fighting to preserve its character and security. As the sun set over Brooklyn Heights, Snoop spent time at his dog's bedside in the clinic, reflecting on the day's events. The peaceful neighborhood he had come to appreciate during filming had shown its vulnerable side, but also its resilience. The community's willingness to stand together against intimidation inspired him to take a more active role in protecting it. The evening ended with Snoop making a series of calls, mobilizing resources and support for what he knew would be a challenging but necessary confrontation with those who threatened the neighborhood's peace. His experience in the entertainment industry had taught him the value of careful planning and patience, qualities that would prove essential in the days to come. The veterinary clinic had become Snoop Dogg's second home over the past 2 days. Between takes on set, he would rush back to check on his companion's progress, the medical staff now familiar with his constant presence. The dog's condition was steadily improving thanks to the quick administration of activated charcoal and specific antidotes, but the incident had left its mark on both of them. During one of his visits, a conversation with the lead veterinarian revealed disturbing information. There had been other cases of animal poisoning in the neighborhood over the past few months, though none had been as severe as this one. The pattern suggested a systematic attempt to intimidate local residents through their pets, a tactic as cowardly as it was cruel. Back on set, Snoop maintained his professional composure, delivering his lines with his characteristic style, but his mind was working on a different script altogether. The sheriff had been gathering intelligence about the motorcycle group's activities, and the picture emerging was troubling. Their presence at the Iron and Ash bar wasn't just about intimidation, it was part of a larger scheme to pressure property owners in the historic district. Between scenes, Snoop received an unexpected visit from an elderly shop owner whose store had been in Brooklyn Heights for 3 generations. With trembling hands, she showed him photographs of her storefront before and after a series of accidents that had begun shortly after refusing an offer to sell. The damage was subtle enough to appear random to outsiders, but formed a clear pattern to those paying attention. The turning point came during lunch break when Snoop's sheriff friend arrived with crucial information. The motorcycle group wasn't working independently. They were hired muscle for a shadow development corporation seeking to acquire properties in Brooklyn Heights at below-market prices. The corporation's plan was to transform the historic neighborhood into a modern entertainment district, erasing decades of cultural heritage in the process. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the film set, Snoop made a decision that would change the course of events. Using his connections in the entertainment industry, he began reaching out to media contacts, carefully building a network of allies who could help expose the truth. His celebrity status, usually a burden when seeking privacy, now became a powerful tool for justice. The production team, initially frustrated by the interruptions to their schedule, began to understand the significance of what was happening. The director, impressed by Snoop's dedication to the community, adjusted filming times to accommodate his meetings with local business owners and authorities. The set became an unofficial headquarters for gathering evidence and testimonies. Local residents, emboldened by Snoop's involvement, started coming forward with their own stories. A cafe owner described suspicious electrical failures that began after refusing to sell. A bookstore owner shared security footage of late-night motorcycle drive-bys. Each piece of evidence added to a compelling narrative of organized intimidation. The sheriff's investigation revealed that the Iron and Ash bar, once a respected local establishment, had been purchased 6 months ago by a shell company linked to the development corporation. The new ownership had transformed it into a base of operations for their pressure tactics, using the motorcycle group to create an atmosphere of fear in the neighborhood. As evening approached, Snoop visited his dog at the clinic one last time that day. The animal's resilient spirit mirrored that of the Brooklyn Heights community, wounded but unbroken. Sitting beside his faithful companion, Snoop reviewed the evidence they had gathered. The next steps would require careful planning and precise timing. The day ended with a clandestine meeting in the back room of a family-owned restaurant that had stood in Brooklyn Heights for over 50 years. Community leaders, business owners, and the sheriff gathered to hear Snoop's proposed plan. His strategy wasn't about confrontation. It was about exposure, legal action, and community solidarity. As the meeting concluded, the restaurant owner's young daughter presented Snoop with a hand-drawn get-well card for his dog. The simple gesture reinforced his commitment to protecting not just his companion, but the entire neighborhood that had shown such kindness and courage in the face of intimidation. The real battle for Brooklyn Heights was about to begin, and Snoop Dogg was ready to lead it. The next morning dawned with an unusual energy in Brooklyn Heights. Word had spread through the community about Snoop Dogg's involvement in their struggle, and the atmosphere of fear began to shift toward one of cautious hope. The film set buzzed with activity, but beneath the surface of normal production routines, a carefully orchestrated plan was unfolding. Snoop's first stop that morning was the veterinary clinic, where he received the best news in days. His dog was strong enough to return home. The veterinarian provided detailed instructions for ongoing care, emphasizing the importance of vigilance during recovery. As Snoop gathered his companion's belongings, he couldn't help but notice other pet owners in the waiting room. They're worried, expressions reflecting the community's ongoing concerns. Back on set, the day's filming schedule had been strategically arranged to allow Snoop time for implementing the next phase of their plan. The sheriff had positioned trusted officers around key locations in the neighborhood, while community members began documenting every suspicious activity near their businesses. The Iron and Ash Bar was under subtle but constant surveillance. During the lunch break, Snoop received an unexpected ally, a former employee of the Development Corporation who had resigned after discovering their unethical practices. Their testimony provided crucial details about the company's methodology, identifying historic neighborhoods with potential for commercial development, creating pressure through intermediaries, and forcing out long-term residents and business owners through escalating intimidation. The afternoon brought a series of coordinated actions. Business owners who had been targeted began filing official complaints, backed by meticulously gathered evidence. The sheriff's office, armed with new information, increased their presence around vulnerable establishments. Local news outlets tipped off about the story began investigating the connection between the motorcycle group and the Development Corporation. Snoop's presence at key moments throughout the day served as both protection and inspiration. When he walked his recovering dog past threatened businesses, community members felt emboldened to stand their ground. The motorcycle group's usual intimidation tactics became less effective under the watchful eyes of cameras and concerned citizens. A turning point came when Snoop visited the Iron and Ash Bar, this time accompanied by his sheriff friend and several business owners. The confrontation was tense but controlled. Instead of threats, they presented evidence, documentation of illegal activities, witness statements, and proof of corporate connections. The message was clear. The community was no longer afraid. As word spread about the gathering evidence, cracks began to appear in the opposition's facade. A junior member of the motorcycle group, impressed by the community's unity and Snoop's leadership, came forward with information about upcoming plans for escalated pressure tactics. His testimony would prove invaluable in preventing further incidents. The film production, originally scheduled to wrap up in a few days, had taken on new significance. The crew, inspired by the real-life drama unfolding around them, began documenting the community's struggle alongside their official work. The director, recognizing the parallel between their movie's theme of urban justice and the actual events, offered to incorporate elements of the real story into their film. Late afternoon brought news that would change the dynamic completely. The Development Corporation's legal team, sensing the mounting pressure and potential for exposure, initiated contact through intermediaries. Their attempts to maintain deniability while seeking a resolution revealed the first signs of weakness in their carefully constructed scheme. Snoop spent the evening meeting with community leaders, reviewing their strategy for the crucial days ahead. His dog, still showing signs of the ordeal but steadily recovering, remained by his side throughout the discussions. The animal's presence served as a constant reminder of what they were fighting for, not just buildings and businesses, but the heart and soul of a community. As night fell over Brooklyn Heights, there was a palpable sense that the tide had turned. The neighborhood streets, which had felt threatening just days before, now resonated with determination and unity. Snoop's involvement had catalyzed a transformation, but the real strength lay in the community's collective decision to stand against intimidation. The final day of filming in Brooklyn Heights dawned with an anticipation that had nothing to do with the movie production. Snoop Dogg arrived on set early, his recovered companion by his side, both of them energized by the changes they had witnessed in the neighborhood over the past few days. The community's transformation from fearful isolation to united resistance had exceeded everyone's expectations. The morning began with a crucial meeting at the local police station. The sheriff presented a comprehensive file of evidence, documented incidents of intimidation, financial records linking the motorcycle group to the Development Corporation, and testimonies from community members. The investigation had revealed a pattern of similar activities in other historic neighborhoods, making the Brooklyn Heights case part of a larger story of corporate overreach. Back on set, Snoop balanced his acting responsibilities with his role as the community's advocate. Between takes, he received updates about the development corporation's increasingly desperate attempts to maintain control of the situation. Their legal team had shifted from threats to offers of negotiation, a clear sign that the pressure was working. The motorcycle group's presence at the Iron and Ash had noticeably diminished, their intimidation tactics rendered ineffective by the community's united stand. The afternoon brought unexpected allies. Representatives from other neighborhoods targeted by the development corporation arrived to share their experiences and offer support. Their stories confirmed what the Brooklyn Heights community had discovered. The corporation's tactics followed a predictable pattern, but they had never faced such organized resistance before. A pivotal moment came when local media outlets began broadcasting stories about the community's struggle. The coverage focused not just on the attempted takeover of historic properties, but on the neighborhood's response. Images of Snoop Dogg walking his recovered dog through Brooklyn Heights streets, greeting shop owners and residents, became powerful symbols of the community's resilience. The development corporation's carefully constructed facade began to crumble under public scrutiny. Their shareholders, concerned about negative publicity, demanded explanations. The motorcycle group, sensing the shifting tide, started distancing themselves from their former employers. The Iron and Ash Bar, once their stronghold, stood nearly empty as regular customers returned to their traditional neighborhood establishments. As the final scene of the movie wrapped, the crew and local residents gathered for an impromptu celebration. The atmosphere was charged with more than just the usual end-of-production excitement. Shop owners who had been considering selling their properties now spoke confidently about future plans. The elderly bookstore owner who had first shown Snoop evidence of intimidation announced plans to expand her children's reading program. The sheriff arrived with news that would cement their victory. The development corporation, facing mounting legal pressure and public relations disasters, had officially withdrawn their interest in Brooklyn Heights properties. The motorcycle group's leaders had been called in for questioning, their connections to corporate interests now fully exposed. The Iron and Ash would be returned to its original owners, who planned to restore it as a community gathering place. Snoop spent the evening visiting the various businesses that had become part of his daily routine during filming. His dog, fully recovered and energetic, received treats and attention from shopkeepers who had supported them through the ordeal. The bond between the star and the community had grown far beyond the usual relationship between a visiting celebrity and a film location. The final gathering took place in the same family restaurant where they had planned their resistance. Community members shared stories of the past week's events, each account adding to the neighborhood's collective memory. The restaurant owner's daughter, who had made the get-well card for Snoop's dog, presented a mural she and other local children had created, depicting the community's triumph over intimidation. As night fell on Brooklyn Heights, the neighborhood had regained its peaceful atmosphere. But something had fundamentally changed. The experience had strengthened bonds between residents and business owners, creating a network of support that would endure long after the film crew's departure. The attempted takeover had revealed the community's true character: resilient, united, and unwilling to surrender its heritage to corporate interests. Snoop's last walk through the neighborhood with his dog was met with waves and greetings from people who had become more than just acquaintances. The film production had captured dramatic scenes for their movie, but the real story, the one that would be remembered in Brooklyn Heights for years to come, was about a community that found its strength through unity, guided by an unexpected champion who understood that true heroism isn't just for the cameras.